I'm Derek Miller, President and CEO of the Salt Lake Chamber and Chair of the Utah Economic Response Task Force, working to mitigate the economic impacts of COVID-19. Welcome to the Task Force 10, a program providing 10 insightful minutes with community, government, and business leaders to discuss best practices, tools, and resources, and innovative programs to successfully deal with the coronavirus. Today we're joined by Dan Gelston, President of L3Harris Broadband Communications System. Dan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Derek. Great to be here.
You know, I think a lot of people probably drive by your facility when they're on the 215, but they probably don't know what's going on behind there. Some of it you probably can't tell us because I know that some of it's military work, but tell us what you can about what's happening at the L3Harris operation in Utah.
Certainly. Yeah, I think you're right. We're probably one of the most unknown entities here in the Valley, although we've been here by the airport since 1956, so 60 plus years of operating primarily defense work for the United States government and intelligence agencies since the height of the Cold War. I've got about 3,600 personnel altogether, 3,000 of which are here based in Salt Lake City, and as you said, right off of 215 and about 1 million square feet by the airport. We primarily design, manufacture, and build out advanced communications systems for the military and intelligence community. So highly specialized, highly classified communication systems that not only link the front lines, but control a lot of the weapon systems, planes, connectivity to space, air, and ground that some people are probably familiar with. An example would be like the Predator UAV. That communications link from the ground to the bird to space and down is all L3Harris and designed and built here.
It's an awesome story and an awesome history here in Utah, as you indicated. One of the things that I always like to ask the business leaders who are joining us on the Task Force 10 program is how they're dealing with COVID-19. You mentioned over 3,000 employees here in Utah. Not all of them can work remotely, so I'm sure you've had to make a lot of adjustments to make sure that you're safe and that your business is continuing to operate well.
Yes, absolutely. 3,000 personnel here in Salt Lake, and I'm very proud to say not one case of COVID so far. This has been a challenge to the business because we do major production at the facility of antennas and modems all the way up to very large systems. You can imagine that people can't do that from home. We also have a lot of classified space at the facility for people to do classified work, again, something they can't really do at home. So about 60%, the maximum amount allowable of my personnel are working from home, leaving about 40% of the 3,000 or so working every day at the plant. To help the safety concerns and make sure we mitigate any infection risk at the plant, we've done multiple things, particularly shift work for those 40%. We've separated desks. We've put up plexiglass sneeze shields. We're obviously following social distancing, 6 feet, masks in public areas. Unfortunately, we've had to shut down communal areas like the gym or major meeting areas. The cafeterias only pick up and go. And now we're doing a temperature screening program, much like I experienced when walking up here. So all of those activities, I think, really have helped us mitigate any risk, because certainly, particularly those working in the special classified areas called SCIFs, they're pretty tight. You don't have a ton of area, a lot of computers that are qualified to do this classified work. So if we did have an outbreak, it really would have an impact on the business and therefore an impact on national security, as we're designated as an essential defense business and therefore mandated to continue working through the crisis.
You talked about some of the work that you're doing with regards to national security, homeland security, the defense of our country. One of the fights that we're in right now that we didn't expect even just a few months ago was the fight against this virus, which means you've been doing a special project that you didn't anticipate to be engaged in this spring as it relates to some personal protective equipment. Tell us about that.
Yes, we're very proud of this fact and the opportunity to help the front lines right here in our own community. Again, we've been focused for 60 plus years on those front lines, overseas military intelligence community. But in the wake of this crisis, our front lines are right here in our backyard, the nurses, the doctors that are dealing with COVID-19 on a daily basis. We were alerted from the university's Center for Medical Innovation that as they stood up a 600-bed COVID-19 response area, that they were desperately short of something called PAPRs, positive air pressure respirators, or powered air pressure respirators. These machines are orders of magnitude more successful at preventing infection than, let's say, an N95 mask. And unfortunately, the university health system had less than 100 on hand. So in a very quick turn, they looked to the Center for Medical Innovation to design an off-the-shelf 3D printed PAPR that hopefully they could work with the community to somehow design and manufacture and get out to their front lines within about 2 weeks. So they had reached out to my business, having the largest production capability here in the Valley. I've got, again, about 1 million square feet right by the airport. And at first, some of our engineers, particularly production and manufacturing engineers, helped CMI. Obviously, they've got the medical side down. We were really on the production side to lock down this design that really depended on off-the-shelf parts, 3D printed parts. Once that design was finalized, we stood up a special production line, quite different from what we normally do with military equipment, and then asked for volunteers. We had over 200 volunteers, and we only needed 100 to stand up this production line. And in the span of about 9 days, we produced the original 1,000 request plus an extra 200 also going to the Indian Health Services. So in 9 days, we pushed out 1,200 of these in a major volunteer effort. And in the process, probably had every single 3D printer in the Valley cranking on these things.
Including one in your home, I understand.
Yes, absolutely. I've got 3 young daughters and a small 3D printer at home. A couple of my daughters are very interested in STEM and engineering, and something I'm hoping to piqued their interest in. So they're very excited. They actually got the motor out assembly file and had a 24/7 operation going on for about 10 days at the Gelston household. And to add a little flair, they selected hot pink to make these assemblies in. So if you see some nurses or doctors walking around with a hot pink PAPR piece, you'll know where that one came from.
That's the Gelston Family Limited Edition.
Yes, there you go. I'm sure a collector's item one day.
It's a tremendous story, and I want to say thank you. Thanks for what you've done, and thanks to your employees for what you've done in creating those devices for those who are working on the front lines. And what I love most about the story is, as you indicated, completely a volunteer effort. And so thank you for that. I also want to make sure that we cover another important topic, and that is the fact that L3Harris here in Utah is hiring. Boy, we hear all the time about people who are losing jobs, and it's just heartbreaking. But it's great to hear about these businesses that are doing well, in fact, doing so well that they're hiring. Tell us about that.
Certainly. As a critical piece of the defense infrastructure, we have been designated as a company that has to continue its work. Obviously, keeping the nation safe, even in light of the dangers of COVID, is not something that we can take a few months off from. So first and foremost, doing everything we can to preserve the health of our workforce and their families, but at the same time balancing that customer requirement to continue both our engineering and our production for national defense. Because that continues and we are a growing business, specifically because of the high-end classified communication equipment we make that is particularly needed as the threat moves from a counterterrorism kind of permissive environment where we're able to communicate through the airways without anyone blocking, jamming, intercepting our communications, to one more focused on a potential near peer threat where there will be challenges. It'll be a contested environment where a potential enemy could jam our communications or intercept them or target us because of that RF signal. That's exactly the kind of work our excellent people here in the Valley do, and really have stealth communications, if you will, to prevent that from happening in a future conflict. So because of that expertise, and I would maybe somewhat biasly say nobody in the country is better at doing that work than 3,000 Utahns here right by the airport. Our business continues to grow. In fact, I'm going to hire probably over 200 personnel this year, some a bit for attrition, but also the majority for growth, particularly in engineering. So if you are an electrical engineer, software engineer, systems engineer, please check out our website. Come give me a call personally. I'd love to talk to you because we are absolutely hiring and growing here in Utah.
Where can these people find out more? Give us the website or give us the best way for them to get in contact.
Yeah, L3Harris.com. And if you search Utah, you'll bring up a broadband communications systems sector site where you'll get to learn all about it, or just look me up on LinkedIn. You'll find Dan Gelston there. I'm happy to connect with you and send you to our recruiting team.
Well, thank you for what you're doing. Thanks for the hiring that you're doing. Thanks for keeping us safe from those who would do our country harm. And thanks for what you're doing on these special projects to keep us on the forefront of battling this coronavirus. And thanks for spending time with us.
I appreciate it. Thank you. It's exciting to help the nation, but at the same time have an opportunity, a unique one for this business, to directly help the community that all our employees live in. And particularly as a long-term East Coaster that only moved here a couple of years ago, it's pretty neat to see a city, an urban area of over 1 million people really be such a small town and come together to face a crisis like this. So as a long-term East Coaster, I'm not sure I ever saw that back there, and it's really neat to be a part of it here in Utah. Thank you.
Well, you're not just a part of it in Utah, you're a Utah now.
All right. I love the no humidity and no bugs in particular. Phenomenal, life changer. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you for joining us on the Task Force 10. Be safe, take care of your loved ones, and look out for those around you. I'm Derek Miller.